May the God of hope fill you with complete joy and peace as you continue to believe, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Here again, words written for us in Hebrews chapter 9. Now, if the blood of goats and bulls and the ashes of the heifer sprinkled on those who are unclean sanctifies them so that their flesh is clean, how much more will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to God, cleanse our consciences from dead works, so that we may worship the living God? For this reason, he is the mediator of a new covenant. A death took place as a payment for the trespasses committed under the first covenant, so that those who are called would receive the promised eternal inheritance. My fellow redeemed, her hands were already cracked and raw. If she had a dime for every time she had washed her hands that day, well, she could go out and have a nice dinner, probably even a cocktail to go with it. That is, if the restaurants were even open. Yet, she would wash them again. And then she would put on the mask, and then she would put on the gloves, because she had to go in and care for the sick. And before she could serve those people, she had to make sure she herself was clean. And no matter how well she washed those hands, no matter how often she washed those hands, she would always have to do it again. Because no matter how careful she was, she knew they could get contaminated again. The Israelites knew nothing about germs and the causes of infection. But they understood, probably better than you and I do, they understood clean and unclean. Their entire lives revolved around being clean and unclean, and how to become clean again. They had rituals and sacrifices and washing and festivals and all those different things designed to make them clean. They repeated them again and again so that they could draw near to God, so that they could worship and be in his presence. So as we are all starting to join them in this fanatical desire to be clean and sanitized, my dear Christians, we have this comfort. You are cleansed already for service, and you may enter the presence of the living God to worship him, and you have been called to his eternal inheritance, according to his new deal. As much as the tabernacle was designed so that the people could go and have a place to meet with God, and God could come down to meet with them, barriers were everywhere. Around the courtyard of the tabernacle, there was that thick curtain for a fence. As soon as you entered into that courtyard, you met an altar where sacrifices were offered, and then there was a wash basin. The priests who would go in to serve inside the tabernacle, they offered their sacrifices, and then they washed themselves at the basin, and only then could they go in to that tent. And they were the only ones who could enter that sanctuary of God. Inside, past that first thick curtain, there was the light from the giant menorah. The room was filled with the burning of incense that would have clouded it up as they offered their prayers to God. There was a thick curtain, inches thick, that blocked curious eyes, that stopped wandering feet from going near the ark of God in the Holy of Holies, even for the priests. Only the chief priest, the high priest, could enter that room, and only once a year, and only with blood, for himself and for all the people. Looking at the calendar, now is about the time that everyone starts to give up on that resolution to read through the Bible in a year. You see, you get to that second half of Exodus, and then Leviticus, and then those parts of Numbers and Deuteronomy, and that is some hard reading. God lays out the minute details that went into setting up the tabernacle. And then there are all those laws. Laws about priestly garments, laws about washing, laws about governing the people, laws about what would make you clean and unclean. I sure hope they got a cheat sheet, some sort of manual to help them sort it all out. You see, touch something unclean. Your clothing touches something unclean. Got a little bit of a rash? Have some other illness that you might not know about? Did you touch some mold in your house? Did you sin? Did you sin on purpose or sin on accident? Well, you were unclean. And there were prescribed washings and sacrifices and a certain set time until you could be made clean again. And then there were all those laws that were so much a part of the Hebrew culture that no one even thought of disobeying them. Eating something unclean, wearing clothing of mixed fabric, being uncircumcised, or even going into the house of someone who was uncircumcised, working on the Sabbath, missing one of those great festivals. All of these would make you unclean. And if you were unclean, you were cut off. You couldn't even go into that courtyard of the Lord. Even the limited access that the normal person had to God would be taken away. In fact, some of these infractions, some of this defilement could separate you from the people altogether. Or worse, you could be put to death. Oh yes, the people of Israel were very aware of what made you clean and unclean. It was his favorite tie. It was the perfect shade. It was bright so that people would notice it, but not so bright so as to be gaudy. He didn't know exactly when or how, probably because he wore it so much, but he got a stain on it. And tie silk, it just doesn't wash. He tried anyway. But the next time he wore that tie, his wife looked at him and said, "No, that tie's got a stain on it." He tried to pretend that it was barely noticeable. "Oh, I guess it does. Well, it's barely noticeable." She gave him that look. It's rather hard to miss. Stain? What stain? That's what the Pharisees wanted to ask. Well, what stain could you see in our lives? We have Abraham as our father. We have Moses and the law. Look at our robes. Look at the tassels on the bottoms. Look at our fancy phylacteries where we carry the name of the Lord everywhere we go. Look at how we wash. Look at how we keep the Sabbath. Look how we fast. Look how we offer our sacrifices. Look at how we observe every festival. Stain? What stain? Now, the Pharisees were good at pointing out all of their virtues, but I think when it comes to virtue signaling, our modern culture, and yes, even we have them beat. You see, we like to, it's not just good enough to do the right thing, or to think the right things. Everyone needs to know that you did the right thing. Everyone needs to know that you think the right way. And even if it's just with some pointless symbolism, you find a way, either subtle or not so subtle, to show the group you want to impress that you are part of the crowd, that you have the virtues they value. Stain. What stain? The Pharisees should have known better. For all of their holiness, for all of their righteousness, for all of the virtues that they like to show, they still weren't allowed in the temple. They still weren't allowed in that most holy place. They had to continue to wash. They had to continue to offer those sacrifices again and again and again. For all that we virtue signal, we certainly can't hide the stain. Besides the fact that what virtues we signal today will be scorned tomorrow, besides the fact that we know and our lives are never quite as perfect as what we put on display for the rest of the world to see, we are stained. And that stain is so often evident to all when we lose our patience and those hurtful words come out of our mouths. When we are being tested and tried, when we are measured and we are found wanting, that stain is there for all the people to see. And even if you were to find the best people, the people the whole world agrees, well, they are the saints, they are the holiest people of all, at least one time in their life, everyone will be able to see the stain. Because, as the Pharisees said, they died. Abraham died. Moses died. All the prophets died. The Pharisees would die. And yes, we will die. We will die because we sin. We die because that sin is a stain upon our flesh. But when Jesus died, everything changed. The curtain in the temple was torn top to bottom. Those believers waiting for the Messiah who had died, they rose up from their graves as the earth shook, and they resumed their lives. And that stain that people had worried about was taken away. 40 years later, the temple would be destroyed. Not a stone would be left on another, and it will never be rebuilt. It will never be rebuilt because it isn't needed anymore. Everything those priests were set to accomplish, everything that temple was built to do, is done in Christ. And that is what our lesson is all about today. The work of Christ is all that he accomplished. But when Christ appeared as the high priest of the good things that were coming, he went through the greater and more complete tent, which was not made by human hands, that is, not a part of creation. He entered once into the most holy place and obtained eternal redemption, not by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood. Christ, the Anointed One, the Messiah, the long-promised Savior from all sin. He never stepped foot in the temple building, but in a way that goes beyond our understanding, in a way that even stifles the author of the Hebrews' description, in a way that is too wonderful for us to understand. Christ offered his sacrifice before God himself. He passed through a greater tent, a greater tabernacle. And he passed through that greater tabernacle that isn't even made in all of creation to present his own blood to the Lord, a payment for sin. And so all the things that that temple had been made to do, he did. And he achieved eternal redemption so that your sin is paid for. And it never needs to be paid for again. It is finished, done, complete. Now all of those sacrifices, all of that washing that the Pharisees did, they were meant to remind them and to remind us how hard it is for us to remain clean and how much we fail. The blood of all those beasts pointed ahead to what Christ would accomplish. And so if the blood and those washings, if that washed their flesh so that they could enter the presence of God and worship him there, even in that limited way while they were separated by those curtains, how much more will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to God, cleanse our consciences from dead works, so that we will worship the living God. Christ's blood cleanses us truly, not a soap washing a virus, not the blood of beasts, not the washing in ceremonial water, but the washing of our souls, so that they are without any stain or blemish. This is not a work that we do for God, but it is a gift that we receive from God as the eternal Spirit by faith grants us what Christ has done, so that everything has now changed. And now I want you to notice something. And it's far less dramatic while you are on that side of the screen and I am on this side of the screen. But notice, there is no curtain here. There is no separation. You have access to the Lord's altar. You have been washed once in the waters of baptism, washed in the blood of the Lamb, clothed with Christ, so that you can come into the presence of God, so that you can worship him with holiness and joy, so that the Lord welcomes you, loves you, listens to your prayers, so that the Lord may directly speak to you, not in visions and dreams, but in his holy word, through his called servants. The Lord himself proclaims, your sins are all forgiven. The Lord comes to meet with you. And nothing separates you from God. The living God lives with you. He lives in you. He remains with you. And no sin, no guilt, no self-righteousness, not even death itself can stain Christ's work. He was without blemish, and yet he died for our sins. But unlike all those who had gone before, death did not conquer him. He was raised to life for your forgiveness. Therefore, you have been cleansed for service to God. God made a deal with his people. He cut a two-sided covenant. You do your part, Israelites, and I will guard you and keep you in the land forever. Now, those of us who have read the Old Testament know how well that went, right? Immediately they start grumbling in the wilderness. Then there's the chaos of the time of the judges, idolatry during the king's exile and return. And even after all of that, they reject the Messiah himself when he comes. And so while they had all of those experts in the law, they didn't seem to have any experts in keeping the law. People always tell you you have to read the fine print. But I'll tell you that if you show me someone who says they read the fine print, you will show me a liar. Who knows what we have all agreed to when we click I agree at the bottom of all of those software and program agreements? It could say anything. No one reads the fine print. So how are you ever supposed to know if you've actually followed the agreement? We don't need to read the fine print. Let's start at the very top. You shall have no other gods. Well, what about our money and our security and our possessions? What about our family? What about sports? Just look at what things people are mourning over in this time of seclusion. What a fine little bunch of gods that we have. And you can continue down the list. How we use the name of the Lord our God. How we remember the Sabbath day. How we honor our parents and all those in authority over us. How we care for other people's bodies and their physical needs at all times. How we keep our thoughts and our bodies pure. Protecting other people's property. Even those greedy people who have more than they should have, more than they need. Defending someone else's good name. Wanting only those things that God has given to you. These are only the 10 Commandments. If we want a fair deal, do these things and you will live. Well, we have it right there. But we certainly don't keep it. And that's why when Jesus came, he came to cut a new covenant. He came to make a new deal. For this reason, he, that is Jesus, is the mediator of a new covenant. A death took place as payment for the trespasses committed under the first covenant, so that those who are called would receive the promised eternal inheritance. Because we didn't keep our end of the deal, this new covenant starts with paying off our debts. His blood pays for our sins. And then, as mediator, he negotiates a new deal, not between us and God, but between Christ and God. It is a new deal that doesn't depend on the things that we do. He explained it to the Pharisees in our gospel lesson. He said, anyone who listens to my words will certainly never see death. It is not our works, but his works. Not the things that we do and our ability to keep the covenant, but the faith that the Holy Spirit works in our hearts as he calls us. That is, he invites us to share in Christ's work by faith. And in him we have an eternal inheritance, one that can never be taken away. The debts are paid. The deed is secured. Nothing, not sin or death or Satan or some silly little virus could ever take that away. You have been called to a new deal. Savior and your God. No matter how many times we wash our hands, they always seem to need to be washed again. This has made us all acutely aware of how many things we touch and how those things might be unclean. And I think it might not be the only reason, but it's at least one of the reasons why everyone's so worried and afraid right now. If this virus spreads so quickly, and if it lasts so long in every surface, how will we ever know if we are clean? Well, my friends, dear Christians, you have this comfort. You are clean. Because Christ's blood has cleansed you. It has cleansed you, not just the skin on the outside, not soap from a virus, not the blood of beasts for a temporary time, but once for all he has cleansed you from all sin. You are clean. And so God invites you into his presence. You are clean so that God listens to your prayers. You are clean so the Lord rejoices to dwell with you, to strengthen you, to keep you, to hear you always. You are clean. And God has prepared your eternal inheritance, arranged by this new deal of Christ that will never be changed, a new deal that is yours by faith. You are clean. And Jesus has gone ahead to prepare that place for you, where you will dwell forever. For you have been invited, clean, pure, immortal in Christ. You possess the eternal inheritance. Amen. And now the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus our Lord.